there's something almost no one has ever considered about Mario and Sonic, and it's that their confrontation might have never been just a fight. It could have been the beginning of something much bigger, the origin of everything we would later know as Super Smash Bros. But here's where things get interesting, because if you already analyze what the movies of the Super Mario Bros. Movies and Sonic the Hedgehog have already shown us, there's one rule that changes everything. Their worlds can already connect. Not just as a simple theory, but as something that can actually happen. In the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, the rings aren't just objects, they are portals. They allow travel between planets and dimensions as if they were normal routes. Sonic isn't discovering paths, he's using something that already exists. And in Mario's case, the pipes work almost the same way. Brooklyn and the Mushroom Kingdom don't share logic, geography, or rules, but they are connected. That means traveling between dimensions isn't an error, it's a natural part of that universe. Because if both worlds already have systems that cross dimensions, then the real question isn't whether they can connect, it's what happens when two systems like that activate at the same time. Alright guys, this is where the real theory begins, and how this could explain the origin of Super Smash Bros. In a cinematic adaptation. Because in this case, it wouldn't start with a fight. It would start with an error, a precise moment where two events from each universe happen simultaneously and create something neither world can control. In Sonic's world, we'd have Sonic using the energy of his rings, an energy we've already seen can become unstable, capable of causing explosions and altering everything around it. And of course, the main villain, Doctor Eggman, a genius obsessed with control, who has already proven he can study and exploit Sonic's energy, even replicate it without much trouble. He's not someone who would stop at a single experiment. He's obsessive, always pushing further. So, how does this connect to Mario's world? Well, it's simple. At the exact moment Mario enters the pipe for the first time, the other half of the problem happens. Now you have two different systems, two completely different sources of energy, but equally powerful, activating at the same time. So what happens to Mario wouldn't be his typical journey through the pipes, it'll be a massive collision of energies. Mario doesn't arrive in the Mushroom Kingdom, he arrives at an in-between point, an unstable space where both universes are touching for the first time. And this, in theory, shouldn't even exist. The characters wouldn't even know something like that is possible. And that's where the first truly impactful moment happens. Mario and Sonic meet. And when their attacks collide for the first time, the space around them fractures. It's not just a hit. It's like reality breaks for a second, revealing fragments of other worlds. That'll be the first sign that something is very wrong. Because think about it, if Doctor Eggman detects someone who clearly doesn't belong to that world, he wouldn't need to see everything to understand it. He would immediately start planning ways to manipulate everything that's happening to his advantage. We know he always likes to stay one step ahead. And of course, Sonic wouldn't have the slightest idea of any of this. So, Eggman would make Mario believe that that blue hedgehog is the real cause of the chaos. And it would actually work, because Mario still wouldn't be an experienced hero. He's just starting to understand where he is and how that world works. So, for that one small moment, he would trust Eggman, without realizing that's exactly where everything begins to fall apart. Meaning, Mario and Sonic wouldn't become rivals just because, but because of a manipulated mistake. Basically, two heroes fighting over a lie. And when they finally face each other, the difference is obvious. Sonic already has full control of his abilities. He's been through real conflicts, he understands his power, and he knows how to use it. His energy is stable, precise, and dangerous when he needs to be. Mario, on the other hand, is just getting started. He's still learning how to move, how to react, and how to take advantage of his power-ups. Not fully ready, but he can't stop either. And that creates an uneven fight, but a necessary one. because it's what pushes the story towards something much bigger. This is where the key concept comes in. In the Sonic movies, his power was just never speed. It's a source capable of powering technology, opening portals, and altering the entire environment. It's something that can sustain systems or destroy them. And someone like Dr. Eggman wouldn't let that go to waste. Knowing him, he would obviously be determined to create something from that energy. Something like a core. Not just any object, but an artificial concentration of Sonic's energy, designed to contain it, replicate it, and exploit it. When Sonic comes into contact with that core, his power amplifies. It becomes more intense and harder to control. He starts breaking the limits of his own universe. But that's not even the worst part. What's truly dangerous is that Mario also comes into contact with that same energy. And in that moment, everything spirals out of control. Now you don't have an experiment versus a beginner anymore. You have two beings from different universes with the same level of power inside a space that can't handle it. Every hit leaves cracks and distorts the environment. The in-between point begins to collapse, as if both worlds are trying to contain Mario and Sonic. And the fight stops mattering, because if they continue, there won't be anything left. That's when Sonic stops, not because he can't keep going, but because he understands what's happening before anyone else. This wasn't an incident, it was caused. And that's when he reveals the truth. He explains to Mario that everything was manipulation from the start, that someone needed that collision of energies, and that's why they were brought to that exact point. And that someone was always Dr. Eggman, not as an improvised villain, but as someone who already understood the rules before they did. Mario doesn't trust him immediately, but now it makes sense. So the fight stops, and they set aside the rivalry to form an alliance. But the most tragic part is that they realize it too late, because Eggman never planned to win that battle. He planned something bigger. While they were fighting, he was already moving forward. His goal was to escape and take the chaos with him. When Mario finally returns to his world, everything is different. The Mushroom Kingdom is no longer the same. The atmosphere is darker and far more unstable. And it's not under the control of a single villain, but two, Bowser and Dr. Eggman. A perfect combination. One represents brute force, the other absolute control. Together, they wouldn't just conquer whatever they want. They could maintain control over both worlds if they wanted to. Meanwhile, in Sonic's world, the situation is worse. Sonic has been defeated and taken out of combat, and that confirms something important. This is no longer a story like the ones Sonic has faced before. This is something much more dangerous, with devastating consequences. And the first one to understand everything is Tails. He becomes the mind that sees the full pattern. Tails analyzes the energy, tracks the anomalies, and reaches a conclusion no one else had considered. This isn't an invasion, it's a rewrite. The timelines are breaking because events that were never supposed to cross are now connected. And that creates something far more dangerous than any villain: instability. And if that's already happening, then the problem isn't limited to two worlds. There are more, many more. Universes that aren't even prepared for something like this, but the collapse has already started. The rules stop working, the limits disappear, and realities begin to merge without control. The only option is to return to the origin, meaning fix the exact point where everything started and prevent both systems from activating at the same time. In simple terms, they would have to stop the collision before it even exists. But of course, that plan comes with a heavy cost, because if you change everything, you change everything that comes after. Nothing would ever be the same again. And just when it seems like there's still a way out, something appears that surpasses everything before. Taboo. Not as the cause of chaos, but as something that exists to take advantage of it. Not to save them, but to reorganize them under its own rules. This becomes another obstacle to restoring everything to normal, because Taboo takes unstable realities and compresses them into a single space, a place where all survivors are dragged in without choice and the rules change. That's where the final scene comes in, as one of the biggest revelations. Mario watches as his world loses its shape, while Sonic sees his reality begin to fall apart. And Tails stands there thinking, because more than anyone, he knows this can't be stopped anymore. Then something new begins to form, something no one has ever seen before. An empty space, but stable. Figures start to appear, not because they choose to be there, but because they're being pulled in. Characters from different worlds, from different realities, all falling into the same place without understanding why. They look at each other, but don't recognize one another. And out of that fear of not knowing where the hell they are, they get ready, on alert for anything. And in that moment, without needing to explain it, everything becomes clear. This was never just a story about Mario versus Sonic, or just an error between dimensions. This was the exact point where multiple universes stopped being separate and started colliding with each other. The origin of everything. The origin of Super Smash Bros. Alright guys, tell me, what did you think about this theory? Would you watch a Super Smash Bros. Movie with this story? Comment Smash Bros. If you're in. We'll be reading you in the comments.